Welcome to JustWannaQuilt, a research podcast coming out of Tulane University Law School, where we explore all kinds of things, stories about quilting, tools, field trips, maybe some famous quilters stop by, and, of course, a little bit of copyright thrown in just for fun. I'm Elizabeth Townsend-Guard, your host. I'm a law professor at Tulane University Law School. I also hold 2 fellowships right now, one at the Business School and one at the Newcomb Institute at Tulane, and I just want to quilt. So John Christie joins us. John is the executive director of the Office of Technology Transfer and Intellectual Property Development at Tulane University, and I've known him for over a decade. He is awesome. He is smart and cool and elegant and listens and has worked with me on my projects for a very long time. He comes to talk to us about the technology transfer piece of this story. If scientists are all working together, how are they doing that? Are they putting NDAs in place? Are provisional patents being filed? Sort of how is this all happening? We ask John that question. I am doing okay. It's a lot. It's a lot is all I'm saying.
Yep.
Working from home means it's really hard to not just keep working, Yeah. Well, thank you for chatting with us. Whitney Chapman is a law student. She's on the call with us as well because I know you're calling in. What we've been doing is interviews. We've been making masks and doing interviews the whole time, but the last, I would say 10 days, about a week to 10 days, we've been focused on scientists and medical people and others that are on the sciencey side, biomedical engineers and industrial hygienists, trying to understand the science side of and where the masks fit in. And what we found is that I started having questions about all these things, and I'm really curious about tech transfer in this. So I think we'll go 15, 20 minutes if that works for you, and you can help our audience understand stuff if that works.
I will do my best.
Awesome. Can you speak up just a little bit or get a little closer to the phone?
Yeah, how's that?
That's great. That's fantastic. Okay, so the first question is super easy. I know the answer, which is, for preservation purposes, tell me your name and where you're calling from.
John Christie. I'm calling from Tulane University in New Orleans.
Awesome. And do you have a memory, or what's your first memory of someone sewing or quilting in your life?
No, I don't have a lot of experience with sewing and quilting, so I don't know when that first memory would be.
Interesting. We're losing you sound-wise again. I'm not sure why.
Okay, I've been trying to fix it, but
that's great. That's
I'll keep
perfect.
trying.
Whatever you're doing right there is nice and beautiful. That's perfect. Okay, so tell us a little bit about your life, say in November. What is your life like before all of this started?
Yeah, well, it's rich and full at all times, I think. So I've got my work here at Tulane, which is fulfilling but demanding, and that takes a lot of time. And then we have three kids, one of whom theoretically was in college. So yeah, it's really home and office fill just a huge amount of my time.
Yeah. And explain, Whitney was asking, and I realized I could have not even asked this question, which was, what is tech transfer? What do you do exactly?
So here at Tulane, my office is part of the Office of Research. So we're really working closely with the research effort at the university. And Tulane does a lot of research in a lot of areas, but when things develop in the research that could become a commercial product, preferably one that has a chance at making the world a better place, then the job of my office is to identify that opportunity and then work with the inventors or discoverers to get it developed to a point where we can get it commercialized and get it out in the world making a positive impact.
It's very cool. And I've worked with you since I got to Tulane. I think you're like one of the very first people I met, and you're just insanely awesome. And I really appreciate you chatting with me. As always, you're always so kind to me. So what we saw was we've been talking to scientists, some that you know, and probably you know all of them are at Tulane, and they started to talk about how they are sharing resources and somebody will come up, 180 of them come up with an idea, and they all take a look and see, and it doesn't work. And it struck me that this is really interesting, this sort of rapid science stuff. And I'm curious what's happening in your world, like as COVID hit New Orleans and as the scientists ramped up, what happened, and how did that change your office, or sort of what happened exactly on the tech transfer side of this?
Yeah, you're right. It's been very interesting. So Tulane was probably, as our president would say, uniquely positioned here because we do a lot of infectious disease research to begin with, and have developed expertise and some commercial success in therapeutics, diagnostics, and vaccines. Plus, we have one of the national primate research centers, and non-human primates are definitely going to be, the most accurate model for how this SARS coronavirus 2 infects and replicates and transmits. So my office has been busy with, on the one hand, a number of our established infectious disease people coming forth very quickly with really diagnostics and therapeutics. We haven't seen so much vaccines, but then also working heavily with the Primate Research Center on establishing research collaborations with government entities and large pharma companies and small companies all over the U.S. and the world to try to develop vaccine candidates mainly there, but also some therapeutic candidates. So, a lot of the stuff that we normally do out of research, unless it is urgent, has been pushed a little bit into a holding pattern while we really focus on helping to mobilize Tulane's research response to COVID. And the scientists are just moving very fast and very collaboratively. And fortunately, as you know, with intellectual property, if you tell the world what you're doing before you've taken the right steps to protect, you can lose rights, which isn't just a matter of making money. It's a matter of being able to find investment in commercialization, which is really key. So fortunately, our researchers have all been keeping our office in the loop so that we can be sure to have patent applications filed and have protection in place before the invention goes too far along. But they are you're right, they're moving super fast.
We talked to Chad Roy, which I imagine is one of the ones that you're working closely with at
Sure.
the National Primate Center. And that was the moment when I was like, wow, right? Like, you're all getting together every week, 180 of you. You're all sharing your research and you're testing it. So do you think these scientists are going to their tech transfer offices and filing like a provisional patent? Like, are they using the patent system right now? Are they not? Sort of, how is this happening? How is the collaboration happening, I guess, with the background of, intellectual property issues that might arise?
Right. So, one of the things, the easy step that we've been taking is confidentiality agreements. And, normally we do, I'd say over the course of a normal year, we do roughly one a week or 3 or 4 a month or something like that. So it ends up being 45 to 50 per year. I think since the first week of March, we've done about 50 in the last 3 months.
Seriously. So, and tell us for the listener who may not understand, what is a confidentiality and who are you being confidential with? So tell me how those are working, what they are exactly.
Right. So as mentioned, you want to protect your intellectual property as well as you can before you get it filed. It needs to remain not shown to the public and not talked about in public. So one of the ways to achieve that, if you're not quite ready to file your patent application yet, is to have a confidentiality agreement, and that means you can talk to somebody who would otherwise be the public, but you've signed an agreement together that says we're going to keep this top secret, and that effectively preserves the patent rights.
Very interesting. And are they doing that with that big group that Dr. Roy is on? Did they all sign confidentiality agreements as well? Like, are they not public? Like, how big? You know what I mean? I wondered about that. Like, how big do you have? That's a lot of people, so I'm curious. Are they one-on-one? Are they like massive confidentiality agreements? Or what do they look like? They
can be one-on-one, or they can be more of a consortium agreement. And if they are, so I think in Dr. Roy's group, they are largely academics, and they have a different sort of protection under something called the CREATE Act, that if they are working on a funded project together, then it is inherently confidential. So,
Interesting.
What we hope for is that the investigator, the scientist like Dr. Roy, will call us early so that we can see what the situation is and figure out what are the most appropriate steps we need to take. It's as you can imagine, and I think it's easier to do it right at the beginning than to come along later and clean it up.
Yeah, really interesting. And so what does science look like? So that was the first thing that struck me. It's like, whoa, what about all the intellectual property rights? And I thought, I'm going to talk to John, because this is the person I need to talk with. The other thing I was struck by is sort of science in the public view. Like, this is like, we're all reading American chemical articles, and like, it's just craziness. What are your thoughts about that? Of like the public being more aware of what's happening in the science realm?
I don't know how to put it other than we live in a country that has not always valued education and science, and some would say right now expertise. So I think every bit helps for people to learn why they, at a minimum, publicly, socially distance, and the importance of masks and all of those things, so that the more the public is taking up this science, and I think you're right, I think it's being discussed at a high level in venues you wouldn't have seen, as you put it, back in November 6 months ago.
Right, on quilting podcasts, right? So we've got scientists explaining like all kinds of crazy technology to us. So that just tells you, it's craziness.
Right, and I know, this is a virus that we're talking about now, and viruses are really tricky, right? There's the flu vaccine is a known thing, but it's also known that it doesn't work incredibly well, but it's the best thing we have. So, I think that people are coming to understand how challenging this particular virus is, in a way that's not just somebody like Dr. Roy or Dr. Gary saying this is a really challenging virus, but they understand that it mutates, that it is affecting different tissues, that it's causing this surge of inflammation. That I think people, I find people talking about that all over the place, which is pretty new. So I think if we raise the interest by a pandemic, then that is at least something good that comes out of all this.
Right. The relevance of science in our universities has become like we're all counting on it, which was something, it's remarkable. The other question I have, and then I'm going to see if Whitney has any questions. I'm curious. Was the liability side of it. So we are all making masks and donating them, and then there's the risk of people going back into the university building, and all kinds of things going on. The medical school students organize a ton of a mask drive. I'm curious what your thoughts have been and what the university's thoughts have been about random things showing up, and if you've had any issues or been involved with that side of it at all.
I have really not been involved with it. Tulane tends to be fairly cautious, so we have not been too heavy on the improvised PPE production side. But quite frankly, I don't think that's held us back. We've had so many other things to work on. I do know that other universities have worked with their universities that say do less virology than we do, so maybe have a little spare capacity. The tech transfer offices and the general counsel's office have worked together to find, so they've come up with, say, templates for a 3D printer for coming up with various, ventilator parts, et cetera. They come up with a license that has very special, liability language in it that says, we're giving this to you as quickly as we can. Good luck. Don't come back and sue us.
Right.
And, I don't think under a lot of circumstances you get away with that, but currently people are willing to take it.
Yeah, and it feels like there's an implied license of like there's no warranty, right? Like if you get masks from your aunt, she's not warranting them,
Right. There's a sort of a generalized Good Samaritan clause going on out there.
Yeah. It's really interesting. Whitney, do you have anything to ask or add to this conversation?
I don't think I do. I think it's been great so far.
Yeah. So what about like the regular science that was going on? Like this seemed incredibly disruptive to everything that's happening. And I'm curious about the grants and other things? Are they getting extensions? Like scientists couldn't work in their labs necessarily. Like how is that impacting on sort of the scientific community?
Yeah. So the federal agencies are definitely understanding and have put together extensions that are easy to get and so forth. But yeah, a lot of the other research at the university did slow down considerably as they were, not having multiple people in the lab at the same time, et cetera. So right now the university is trying to phase back into bringing people back into the labs that aren't working on infectious disease. But it was, it's like so many other things. Yes, it was a significant blow, but so many other people were experiencing the exact same blow that it wasn't like when we've been hit by a hurricane or a flood or something and
like the whole
people
world, like it's
don't understand.
Yeah, it's really interesting.
What do you mean you didn't get your mail on August 29th, 2005?
Exactly.
Well,
right.
I went through that. This is so much different because everybody's been hit by it.
Right. Yeah.
So
and we both have kids that are going to be seniors where they're canceling the ACT and the SAT. It's pretty disruptive. It's pretty interesting. So my kid wrote on the board when they canceled the SAT and the ACT, "Thanks, COVID-19." It was like the one plus that you didn't have to sit at that moment for that test. So
right. So if I could add one thing there. So from my office, I love discovery research, what might have been called basic science at one point, where they're really just looking for how does the universe operate and not necessarily toward an applied end. And at times our office has been hit by the concern that we don't really care about discovery science. We do. It's just not it's not what we're here to service, except in helping research collaborations come into being and so forth. I do have a concern that our discovery scientists, those on the more, exploratory end of the spectrum, are going to feel that their work is somehow, deprioritized in the face of infectious disease. And I certainly hope that the deans and department heads and so forth are taking steps to be sure that we value all the research at the university as meaningful, even if not as urgent as some others right now.
That's really important. And then I think related to that is the social entrepreneur aspect of this. That, I know from your relationship with me that not everything in your office is focused on money, but there's a lot of good, and because Tulane is such a social entrepreneurship school, I'm curious about that side of it as well.
So we went through this before with the Ebola outbreak that started in 2014 in West Africa, where Tulane happened to have a significant research operation in viral hemorrhagic fevers. And I would say, and this was pretty much all of the current administration, understood that no matter how much time and effort my office went into helping that move forward, that was the right thing to be doing. And we weren't going to worry about the dollars at the end, right? The public health mission really outweighs the financial mission. So I have not heard otherwise now, and I think everybody's just eager to see Tulane stay really at the front of the COVID-19 response. If there's money to be made down the line, that would be great, but not until the fires are put out, right?
It's really interesting. Yeah, it's a remarkable moment, isn't it? We've got it's just a very remarkable moment. And then school opening up. Thoughts about that? So universities are starting to open or not open or go online. I'm curious, just as part of the inner workings of Tulane, what we should be thinking about as we send our kids back to college. I imagine, is yours going back? I don't know. How do we feel about returning to the world, I guess?
Yeah. So it seems like every day, if you're careful, you can hear our own John M. Barry, who wrote The Great Influenza, discussing how that panned out and the things that absolutely did not work, like coming back out into the public sphere too quickly, and then the second wave came. Mm-hmm. And I think the report this morning is that 20 U.S. states now have rising infection rates. I hate to tell my kids to take a year off. I hate to tell Tulane students to take a year off, but honestly, let's see how these next couple of months play out in terms of recurrence, in terms of a second wave. I'm very much advocating caution on that front. Why should we be in a hurry when the stakes are so high right now? So
Yeah.
Tulane is offering a hybrid model. The school where my college-age kid is offering a hybrid model. She's going back. At least that's the plan right now, to answer your question. But I life now is long, right? It's what if they take some time off and have to spend some more time trapped under the roof with me.
Yes.
I know that's bad, but it's better than spreading this disease and getting an infection.
Right. Like, it's the best time ever. Mine is like, I'm definitely going away to college, Mom, because she's been trapped with us for like months. But yeah.
I mean, I think that it's also a bit of a double-edged sword to decide to take time off or not. I know someone who was waiting to put in their deposit for the law school because they were admitted for the fall, but they wanted to hear if we would be online or not. And I was thinking, I'm really glad I'm not in that position to consider taking a year off, because like me personally, I was a government major and I was like, what am I going to do with a BA in government and take all this time off and like, especially with the state of the economy, it was just smarter for me to go to law. It would have been smarter for me not to take any time off. And so it's like a little bit of a double-edged sword with COVID and deciding what to do.
Absolutely right. There are no easy answers in this. And one thing I have explained to people that you two have not asked, but I heard it again this morning about vaccines being ready in a year. If you take a minute and research and look at the history of vaccine development, it is incredibly difficult. The human immune system is incredibly hard to manipulate in exactly the way you want. Vaccines seem to have a large component of luck and also time. It takes a long time to develop a vaccine, with all due respect to Dr. Fauci and what he says. So, we need diagnostics and we need therapeutics first and then bring on the vaccines, but the vaccine is not coming for a while if history is any judge, no matter how much the biotech companies say they can get it out in 12 months or 18 months. I don't see it.
Yeah, very interesting.
So it's tough.
It's a lot. It's just a lot. It's really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. So yeah, we'll see. I think, I don't know. We just live in really strange and interesting and horrible times. But, we do our best. So that's all we can do.
Right.
Well, John, I really do appreciate you chatting. Is there anything else that you think we should be knowing about as the general public and sewing community?
Well, I think certainly the efforts you and the people you've been collaborating with to get masks out are huge. And I wish the uptake on masks were 100% among our population, because it's such a simple step. It is a modest inconvenience, and it makes a huge impact on the spread. So please keep doing, obviously, what you're doing. But if more questions come up about how infectious disease science moves forward, I am so happy to talk about it, because it's a fascinating and obviously right now very relevant topic.
Yeah, it's been remarkable. We've had some really good interviews. We have a medical student on our team right now, and he just really figured it out. And so it's been great. I think understanding the science, and for regular people like me to understand the science, is really good for science, because it's an interesting moment for science. It's a good moment for science, I think.
Yeah. Let's keep that momentum going. And if it occurs to me at some point what my earliest memory of sewing or quilting was at some later point, I'll follow back up with you, and you can
right. Yeah.
You can edit that back in.
That sounds good. It's just like deep in there, right? You'll be like, wait,
somewhere,
yeah. Right. Yes. Well, as always, you're so insanely awesome. Thank you for your time. And you're okay with us posting this? You don't need to review it, I imagine.
No. I look forward to hearing when it's up, and then listening to the backlog of stuff I've missed in recent months.
Awesome. Okay, hold on just a sec. Let me turn off the recording. So you've been listening to JustWannaQuilt, a research podcast coming out of Tulane University Law School. And I'm Elizabeth Townsend-Garr. If you like this podcast, keep listening. Also, we have a Facebook group. Come join us. We talk about a lot of things. We also have an Instagram account. And of course, most importantly, I really hope you get a chance to quilt today.